Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Love and War Story. In this episode, we bring you the riveting tale of a peaceful colony on the brink of annihilation. When the merciless Vexar Dominion attacks, their unrelenting destruction is only met by the fierce spirit of a young girl and the wrath of a species that has long hidden its true power. This story is one of sacrifice, survival, and the indomitable will to protect what matters most. Can humanity rise against the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known? Will their fight change the very fate of the stars? Stay tuned as we delve into this gripping saga of war, honor, and the enduring hope that drives humanity to fight for its survival, no matter the cost. Let's dive into Part 1, the Black Ships of Vexar. The vastness of space stretched endlessly around the black ships of the Vexar Dominion, their dark, imposing forms slicing through the inky blackness like predators hunting in the night. These ships, sleek and terrifying, were crafted from an unknown metal that absorbed all light, making them appear as voids in the fabric of the cosmos. No starlight dared to reflect off their surfaces, leaving them shrouded in an eerie, impenetrable darkness. Their hulls, smooth yet jagged in shape, seemed almost alive, as if the very ships themselves were made from the same menacing essence that flowed through the Vexar warriors they carried. Trailing behind them, a violent red energy pulsed like blood flowing from an open wound in the galaxy. The streaks of crimson light left behind by their engines cut through the void like a gash, leaving an unsettling path that was too bright for the deep space but too faint to reveal their exact location. The red trails twisted and writhed as if they were an extension of the ships themselves, a symbol of the death and destruction they brought wherever they traveled. For 300 years, the Vexar had become legends in the galaxy, their reputation feared by all who knew them. These ruthless conquerors had decimated countless worlds, enslaving weak species, tearing through defenses, and crushing any resistance that dared to rise against them. To the Vexar, the concept of mercy was foreign, a luxury they deemed unnecessary. Their twisted philosophy saw the universe as a grand hunting ground, with the strongest ruling over the weakest. In their eyes, every conquered world and every enslaved species was simply another victory in their long, blood-soaked history. At the helm of one of these monstrous ships, Commander Vel stood tall, his cold, yellow eyes narrowing as they scanned the view ahead. His dark, scaled skin seemed to absorb the light around him, making him appear as if he had merged with the ship itself. Vel was the epitome of a Vexar warrior, tall, strong, with razor-sharp claws on his hands and a face marked by scars, each one a testament to a world he had conquered. His expression was one of cold calculation, his mind always focused on the next conquest, the next battle. As the peaceful world of Nova Haven came into view, the stillness of space seemed to grow heavier, the silence broken only by the hum of the ship's engines. Nova Haven, a world on the fringe of human colonization, was a far cry from the bloodthirsty battlefields the Vexar thrived in. The planet, with its shimmering blue oceans and sprawling forests of purple trees, appeared serene, almost too beautiful. A place of peace, untouched by the cruelty of war. But to Vel, it was merely another step in his relentless march toward galactic domination. The Vexar ship cut through the atmosphere with no hesitation, as if the planet were already claimed. The soft blue sky of Nova Haven seemed to warp as the ship's massive shadow loomed over the surface, a signal to the inhabitants below that their time was running out. The ship's guns glimmered ominously in the sunlight, ready to turn the tranquil world into another war-torn wasteland. "Prepare the warriors," Vel growled, his voice a deep rumble, cold as ice. His yellow eyes never left the planet below, as if willing the peaceful world to yield to the inevitable. "We attack at dawn. These soft, weak species will fall like all others." His words were sharp, laced with the confidence of a conqueror who had never known defeat. For the Vexar, their way was the only way. Violence and domination were their birthright, and any world that resisted would face the wrath of their unrelenting force. As Vel spoke, his mind raced with the tactical plans he had prepared. Nova Haven's defense systems were rudimentary at best, barely adequate to hold off the might of the Vexar fleet. The humans on this planet were unprepared, their ships too small, their weapons too weak. They were prey, no different from the countless others that had fallen to the Vexar's might. The Vexar fleet loomed in the distance, the dark ships circling the planet like sharks in the water, waiting for the signal to strike. Vel's hand tightened around the ship's control panel, his claws scratching against the metal. He could almost taste the victory that was to come, the screams of the weak, the cries of the conquered, the sweet sound of war. And yet, as the planet came closer into view, something strange tugged at the back of his mind. Something felt different about Nova Haven. The air, the very essence of the planet, seemed to vibrate with an energy Vel couldn't quite place. But that feeling quickly passed, replaced by the cold certainty that the Vexar were unstoppable. The humans would fall, just as every other species had before them. The countdown began. The warriors readied their weapons, preparing for a ground assault that would annihilate any resistance. Commander Vel stood firm, his gaze still locked on Nova Haven. The time for words was over. It was time to conquer. In the distance, the first rays of dawn began to pierce through the darkness of space, a new day breaking over the planet. A day that would forever change the fate of Nova Haven. On Nova Haven, the air was fresh, tinged with the scent of alien flora. The vibrant fields stretched endlessly, awash with hues of blue and purple that seemed to shimmer under the twin suns of the planet. The grasses rippled like an ocean of colors, swaying gently with the breeze that carried the soft murmur of waves crashing against the shores in the distance. It was a peaceful world, the kind of place that had not yet felt the sharp bite of war. The land was alive, breathing, untouched by the chaos of the cosmos beyond. Ellie Chen, an 8-year-old girl with dark braids tied tightly at the back of her head, wandered carelessly through this peaceful haven. Her wide, curious eyes sparkled with wonder as she ventured into the wilds of the colony, a place she knew like the back of her hand. The world around her was a playground, full of mystery and joy. As she ran through the field, her footsteps light on the soft earth, her laughter echoed across the valley, blending with the harmonious songs of distant birds, strange creatures she had grown to know and love. Beside her hovered Spark, a small robot companion, its spherical body smooth and shiny, glinting in the sunlight. The little drone was only the size of a soccer ball, but its advanced sensor lights blinked with keen awareness, scanning the surrounding environment as they walked. Spark's voice, calm and friendly, resonated in the air. "Weather warning, Ellie," Spark said in its high-pitched, chipper tone. "We should return to the colony center within 30 minutes. Ellie waved it off with a grin, brushing aside the concern. "That's plenty of time, Spark. I want to see if the blue flowers by the river have bloomed yet." Her words were filled with innocence, unaware of the silent threat that loomed overhead. The vast sky, a perfect canvas of pastel pink and orange, appeared utterly serene. There wasn't a cloud in sight, just a vast, endless stretch of peace. The sun bathed the land in a warm, golden glow. Ellie felt as if nothing could possibly harm her here. Nova Haven was her safe place, a world where the beauty of nature lived in harmony with humanity's efforts. High above, however, in the shadows of the endless expanse, the Vexar scout ships remained unseen by the naked eye. These ships, equipped with advanced cloaking technology, hovered silently in the sky. They were hidden, blending seamlessly with the expanse of space, their dark, sharp edges barely noticeable against the backdrop of distant stars. Their cloaking systems rendered them invisible, even to the most advanced detection methods, and they moved with absolute precision, watching as Nova Haven's serene life unfolded below. Inside one of these ships, Commander Vel stood, gazing down at the peaceful colony through his ship's advanced sensor systems. His yellow, glowing eyes narrowed slightly as he studied the human settlement. His expression was cold, calculating, the look of a predator observing its prey from a distance. With every passing second, his satisfaction grew. Through the ship's view screen, the peaceful landscapes of Nova Haven were laid bare, the green rivers, the shimmering forests, and the small human settlement. Ellie, so carefree in her innocent exploration, seemed so insignificant to Vel. He could feel the faint vibrations of life emanating from the planet, but his focus remained on his mission. "No defense," Vel muttered under his breath, a sly smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He wasn't concerned about the humans' weak defensive systems. This would be no challenge. The planet's residents were too young in the ways of galactic warfare, too fragile to resist the Vexar's might. To him, this was an easy conquest, nothing more than a blip on the radar of his long, violent history. "This will be easy," Vel said again, more to himself than anyone else. His voice was deep and sinister, with a note of cruel anticipation. In his mind, the invasion of Nova Haven was already a victory, the humans' fate already sealed. Little did he know, however, that the very essence of humanity, their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unwavering love for life was something beyond the scope of his understanding. As Ellie continued her race through the peaceful fields, the storm clouds of war began to gather unseen in the heavens above, ready to strike. The Vexar, with all their might, had no idea that the greatest strength of humanity was yet to be revealed. As Ellie reached the riverbank and crouched down to admire the newly bloomed blue flowers, a sense of tranquility filled her. Spark hovered nearby, continuing its scan of the environment, its sensors flashing green as it hummed in contentment. But overhead, the Vexar were ready. The calm would not last. The storm was about to break. The sky above Nova Haven, a sky once painted with the soft hues of dawn, was now violently torn asunder. The first light of the twin suns touched the central dome of the colony, casting long shadows over the pristine surface of the planet. The peaceful morning quickly turned to chaos as a dark mass appeared in the sky, blocking out the stars and the rising sun. The Vexar ships descended like a swarm of predatory storm clouds, their massive frames cutting through the atmosphere with an unnerving silence. The ships were silent but for the hum of their engines, their hulking forms cloaked in darkness. As they approached, their weapons sleek and menacing flared to life, lighting up the sky with fiery red blasts. The red energy beams shot down like bolts of lightning, lighting up the horizon with an intense glow that painted the clouds in shades of blood red. The sudden explosion of energy split the serene morning air, the blasts so powerful they shook the very foundation of the colony. Nova Haven, which had only moments before seemed like a dream of peace, now felt like a battleground. Inside the control room, Director Maya Wilson, her face pale with fear, rushed to the central console. The room was immediately filled with the sound of alarms blaring, their shrill cries piercing the silence. Red lights flashed in time with the pulsing sirens, casting everything in an eerie, frantic glow. Maya's eyes widened, taking in the chaos unfolding before her on the holographic display. The Vexar warships were now visible, 5 of them, massive and ominous, their dark hulls gleaming with malice. On the screens, their weapons lit up with deadly intent, and explosions began to bloom across the surface of Nova Haven. The colony's shields flickered and struggled to hold, their faint blue glow sputtering under the intense barrage. The display showed ships, once proud and full of life, being reduced to fire and debris in the blink of an eye. "We're under attack," shouted the security chief, his voice filled with panic. His fingers flew over the control panel, trying in vain to access emergency protocols. "Vexar warships, 5 of them. They're jamming our communications. We can't call for help." The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with disbelief. The Vexar fleet was here, and there was no time to react. Maya's heart sank, her mind racing with desperate thoughts. They had never prepared for this. The colony's defenses, though designed to withstand small skirmishes, were utterly inadequate against the might of the Vexar. They had never imagined that an enemy so ruthless, so powerful, would strike so decisively. Outside, the human patrol ships, the colony's last line of defense, rose into the air, engines roaring. Their small frames darted through the chaos, launching into the sky to confront the invaders. But they were no match for the Vexar's sheer firepower. Within moments, 2 of the patrol ships were engulfed in blinding explosions, their bodies reduced to twisted metal and flame. The bright orange bursts of fire lit up the sky as the ships disintegrated, leaving nothing but blackened remnants in their wake. Commander Vel, high above, watched the destruction with a cold, calculating gaze. The image of the colony's efforts to fight back only seemed to amuse him. His yellow eyes glinted with cruel satisfaction, a wide grin forming on his sharp features as the final pieces of the human resistance were crushed before his eyes. "Let them struggle," he said softly, his voice like gravel grinding beneath a boot. "It won't take long. This will be their final lesson." The Vexar were a species that knew only domination and destruction. For Vel, watching the colony fight back was almost a form of entertainment. The humans were insignificant in his eyes, soft-skinned prey unworthy of survival. Their strength was nothing compared to the Vexar's. The Vexar did not fight for honor or glory, they fought to consume and to subjugate. The humans' resistance would be crushed beneath their heels, just like all others who had tried to fight. Below, on the ground, the terrified colonists ran in every direction, the chaos escalating as the buildings shook from the force of the attacks. Maya Wilson stood at the control center, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched helplessly. The holographic map before her blinked red with dots flashing across the screen, marking the devastating progress of the Vexar ships. Nova Haven, once a beacon of hope for humanity in this corner of the galaxy, now felt like an uninhabited graveyard. The peaceful colony had turned into a deadly battlefield within minutes, its fate sealed by the unstoppable power of the Vexar war machines. Maya swallowed hard, her breath shallow and fast. As the Vexar closed in, Commander Vel issued his orders. Ground assault begin. We will finish this quickly. And so, as the sun continued to rise over Nova Haven, the full weight of the Vexar invasion began to descend upon the colony. The once peaceful world, with its vibrant fields and sparkling oceans, would soon become nothing more than a memory. The terror had only just begun, and for the humans of Nova Haven, survival now seemed a distant dream. The storm of war was here, and no one was safe from its fury. The Vexar had come to claim the galaxy as their own, and the humans of Nova Haven were caught in the eye of their destructive storm. The air in Nova Haven was suddenly heavy, thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and the harsh, mechanical whir of destruction. The peaceful hum of the colony's daily life had vanished, replaced by the deafening roar of explosions that echoed like thunder, shaking the earth beneath their feet. Inside Dr. Lin Chen's home, the first blast sent tremors through the walls, rattling the windows. Ellie Chen, still curled up in her bed, was jolted awake by the noise. Her small heart raced, the sound of distant explosions creeping into her mind like a nightmare made real. Dr. Chen was already at her side, his voice low but urgent. "We need to get to the shelter, Ellie," he said, his face pale but calm, his expression unreadable except for the brief flicker of fear in his eyes. He pulled her close, lifting her from her bed with surprising speed. Ellie's soft braid bounced against her shoulders as she scrambled to keep up, the safety of her home now far beyond reach. Through the windows, she could see the chaotic flashes of red fire tearing through the sky. The Vexar warships, dark and menacing, cast an enormous shadow over the colony. The first ground assault had begun, and the colony had no defenses to stop it. Ellie's mind raced, trying to comprehend the explosion of destruction unfolding before her. Outside, the ground trembled again as the Vexar landing craft hit the surface. The rumble of their landing thrusters vibrated through the dirt and stone, shaking the very foundation of the colony. The Vexar warriors emerged from their craft like dark, imposing shadows, tall, muscular figures, their bodies encased in black armor that gleamed with a cold, sinister light. The armor, reinforced with razor-sharp spikes, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, reflecting the red fire of their weapons. Their yellow eyes, glowing through the visors of their helmets, burned with an unsettling hunger as they surveyed the colony, eager for destruction. Dr. Chen, never taking his eyes off the chaos outside, grabbed Ellie's hand tightly, pulling her toward the shelter. "Stay close, Ellie. We'll make it to safety." As they ran, the distant screams of the colony's security forces filled the air. The Vexar warriors moved with ruthless efficiency, cutting down any resistance with cold precision. The human defenders, though brave, stood no chance against the overwhelming strength of the invaders. The Vexar blades sliced through the air, their strikes brutal and unrelenting. Every movement was calculated, designed to overwhelm, to destroy. Resistance was futile. Once they reached the shelter entrance, Dr. Chen turned to Ellie. His face was set, but there was a tremor in his voice as he knelt down to her level. "You stay here. Do exactly as I say. I need to go help the others. Spark will protect you." He handed her the small robot that hovered nearby. Ellie's eyes filled with tears as she nodded silently, clutching Spark tightly in her hands. Spark, the little drone, had been her constant companion, always by her side, a reminder of the world outside of the chaos. Dr. Chen gave her a final, quick hug. "I'll be back. I promise." With one last glance at his daughter, he sealed the door behind him, leaving Ellie and the others in the shelter's relative safety. The bunker, though small and dimly lit, had been designed for moments like this when the world outside collapsed, when the storm of war came crashing down. Ellie had been to the shelter before, but never like this. The usual hum of the ventilation system was replaced by the low hum of fear, a tense silence broken only by the soft sobs of children around her. As the door clicked shut, Spark activated its defense protocols, its red sensors blinking to life as it hovered protectively in front of the children. Its small, blue sensor light flickered like a beacon of reassurance, casting an eerie glow in the dim room. "Defense Protocol Alpha, engage," Spark's calm voice announced, as it positioned itself between the children and the door, ready to protect them with whatever limited capabilities it had. The children huddled together, eyes wide with terror, their minds struggling to understand what was happening. They had been raised in a world of peace and wonder. Now they were thrust into the heart of an invasion, with no way to defend themselves. Through the thick walls of the bunker, the distant sounds of blaster fire, screams, and crashing debris could still be heard. Ellie's heart pounded in her chest. She could still see the face of her father as he turned to leave, his last words echoing in her mind. "Be brave, Ellie. Spark will protect you." But bravery was hard to summon when the very ground beneath your feet was shaking with the violence of war. Ellie swallowed hard, her small body trembling. The world outside was collapsing, and the Vexar were tearing through the colony with unrestrained force. Ellie stared at Spark, her robotic companion that had faithfully served her through every adventure. Now, it was all she had. And with its protection, Ellie found the strength to be brave. With her hand tightly gripping the little robot, Ellie whispered a promise to herself, "I'll stay brave, just like Dad told me." She didn't know how long the attack would last, how many lives would be lost, or whether her father would return. But Ellie knew one thing for sure: she would hold on to hope, and protect the children in the shelter, no matter the cost. The air in the bunker had grown stale with tension, the weight of uncertainty pressing on the children's fragile shoulders. Ellie, sitting with her best friend Lily, held her trembling hand tightly, trying to offer comfort, though her own heart raced with fear. Outside, the sounds of battle continued to reverberate through the walls, distant explosions followed by the sharp crackle of energy blasts and the muffled screams of colonists who were facing an enemy they couldn't defeat. The oppressive silence in the bunker made the reality of the attack feel even more suffocating. The dim lights flickered, casting long shadows over the walls. Ellie's breathing was shallow, but she tried to remain calm, focusing on the comfort of Lily's hand in hers. Yet, despite the small semblance of safety, the fear gnawed at her. The sound of heavy footsteps outside the bunker door was like a distant drum beat, growing louder, more deliberate. Each thud of the Vexar's massive feet sent a chill down her spine, the sound reverberating in her bones. It was the sound of something unstoppable, something that would not stop until they had taken everything. "Spark, go," Ellie whispered urgently, her voice shaking but firm. The little robot, always alert, responded immediately, its red sensor light flashing to life as it hovered to the door. Spark's small metallic body shifted as it positioned itself, standing in front of the entrance, its defense protocols fully activated, its protective mode humming like a shield around the children. With the door temporarily secured, Ellie took a deep breath, her pulse quickening, and began leading the younger children toward the hidden maintenance tunnel she knew from her time spent exploring. It was narrow and dark, winding beneath the colony like a secret artery of the world. The tunnel wasn't safe, but it was their only chance. It led into the wilderness, away from the Vexar's reach, and that made it their best hope. As Ellie turned back to ensure everyone was moving safely through the cramped passage, she heard something that froze her in place, a low growl, echoing from behind her. She looked up, her eyes wide with dread, to see a Vexar warrior emerging at the tunnel entrance. The warrior's dark, reflective armor gleamed menacingly in the weak light, its sharp claws clicking together with a metallic sound, a sound that echoed the cold determination in its yellow, glowing eyes. The creature's towering presence filled the opening, its breathing a slow, calculated rhythm. It was the embodiment of death itself, an apex predator standing in their only way out. "Run, Ellie," Spark urged, its tiny voice trembling with fear as it hovered protectively in front of her, trying to block the Vexar's path. But Ellie, her pulse pounding in her ears, did not move. She stood tall, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. The fear inside her was paralyzing, but there was something else: determination. She would not run. This was her home, her people, and she would not let it fall without a fight. "This is our home," Ellie said, her voice trembling but defiant. Her heart raced, the weight of the moment hanging over her. Lily, her eyes wide with fear, clung to her, but Ellie didn't turn away. She had to be strong, for her and for the children who depended on her. The Vexar warrior tilted its head slightly, a chilling grin stretching across its faceplate as it laughed. It was a deep, guttural sound that seemed to echo in the tunnel. "Brave little prey. You'll die for nothing," it sneered, its voice distorted by the suit's mechanical inflections, mocking Ellie's defiance. Ellie's grip tightened around Spark's small, metallic form as she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the oppressive air like a sharp blade. "Maybe I will," she said, her voice cracking with fear, but steady nonetheless. "But I'll make you remember why." The Vexar warrior raised its claws, the sharp tips glinting as they caught the last remnants of light in the tunnel. Ellie's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She could feel the cold metal walls pressing in on her, but her resolve solidified. She couldn't let the Vexar take everything without a fight. She couldn't let them break her spirit. Her hands shook as she placed Spark down and whispered, "Protect them." The small robot blinked its red light one last time, its system scanning the warrior and analyzing the threat. "Defense protocol, engaged," Spark said in its calm voice, its sensors whirring to life as it stood between the children and the warrior, ready to give its all to protect them. Ellie took a deep breath and turned back to face the Vexar warrior, her chest tightening as she watched its massive claws raise. She knew this could be the end, but in this moment, she would not show fear. She would not run. The Vexar warrior stepped closer, its eyes locked on hers, the predator scenting the fear in her. The sounds of battle still echoed outside, but here, in the dark, the only thing that mattered was Ellie and the warrior standing before her. A battle of wills. Of survival. With Spark's final stand at her side and her heart full of unyielding resolve, Ellie felt the weight of everything she had lost and everything she still had to protect. The Vexar had underestimated humanity before, but now, they would see that no matter how small, no matter how young, humans would always fight for what mattered. This was Ellie's final stand. The tunnel was cloaked in an eerie silence, broken only by the faint sound of Ellie's breath and the soft mechanical hum of Spark. Ellie stood firm, her small body trembling but unwavering, her heart pounding in her chest as the Vexar warrior loomed over her. The air was thick with fear, yet Ellie's courage burned brighter than the terror that gripped her. Holding Spark tightly in her arms, she whispered with a force that could shatter the darkness around her, "You shouldn't be here." The Vexar warrior, its massive claws gleaming in the dim light of the tunnel, smirked down at her. Its eyes, glowing an unnatural yellow, locked on Ellie's, as if trying to see through her, to pierce into her very soul. The warrior was a beast, a creature forged for destruction, its very existence defined by violence and conquest. To it, Ellie was nothing more than a mere obstacle, a fleeting, fragile thing that would break under the weight of its presence. But Ellie, though small, was unyielding. As the Vexar raised its clawed hand to strike, Ellie didn't flinch. She stood tall, heart racing but steady, her voice defiant, a declaration that despite her youth, she would never bow to the terror that had come to claim her world. But in the blink of an eye, the Vexar warrior's strike was faster than Ellie could react. Its clawed fist moved like lightning, a blur of black armor and sharp edges. The blow landed with a sickening thud against Ellie's side. The force sent her crashing to the floor, her vision spinning, her body frozen in shock. For a moment, the world around her faded, the tunnel became a blur, and the children's fearful faces, Lily's desperate eyes, all seemed distant, like fading echoes in the void. Ellie's head swam, her breath ragged as her body betrayed her. A dark shadow descended over her, and everything went black. Yet, as Ellie's consciousness slipped away, Spark the small, ever-loyal robot activated its final defense protocol. With a faint, almost imperceptible click, Spark's red sensor light flickered to life for the last time. It had been Ellie's companion, her protector, since they first explored the wilderness together, and now, it was doing what it was programmed to do, protect. Spark moved into position between the children and the Vexar warrior, its metal body humming as its internal systems surged with power one final time. "Defense Protocol, Alpha," Spark's calm, mechanical voice announced, but the words were laced with an unnatural calm, a quiet finality that made the air feel heavier. The Vexar warrior, seeing the small robot standing between it and the children, sneered and raised its clawed hand, prepared to crush this final barrier. But Spark was already moving, using every ounce of its energy to shield the children, pushing them away to safety. As the Vexar's claw descended, Spark made a last, desperate attempt. Its tiny, fragile frame could not stand against the strength of the Vexar warrior, but it moved with a swiftness born of its last programming, darting in front of Ellie's fallen form, its tiny body absorbing the blow meant for the children. The sound of metal bending and breaking filled the tunnel as Spark was struck down. Its red sensor light blinked furiously, and then, with a quiet hum, it powered down, its systems flickering out one final time. But before its final shutdown, Spark completed its mission. Its last act was to send a distress signal to the colony's emergency beacon, broadcasting everything that had just transpired: Ellie's bravery, Spark's sacrifice out into the cold expanse of space. The footage of Ellie standing tall against the Vexar warrior, her unwavering spirit in the face of certain death, was now a beacon to the galaxy. The video, an image of defiance, was sent into the stars, a message of what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. Ellie's last thoughts, as her body lay still on the cold floor of the tunnel, were of the children she had fought to protect. But even as she slipped away, a strange sense of peace settled over her. She had done everything she could. She had fought for what mattered. Above, in the sky, the Vexar ships continued their descent, their fiery red beams lighting up the horizon, but the true force of humanity had just awakened in the quiet bravery of a little girl and her robot companion. 3 days had passed since the Vexar assault tore through Nova Haven, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. Captain Helen Reyes and her team aboard the UNSC Des, their military ship, hovered above the ruined planet, scanning the devastated landscape. What was once a thriving colony, with its vibrant blue oceans and purple forests, was now a wasteland, charred remains of buildings, smoldering ruins, and scattered debris that spoke of the violence that had descended upon them. As the team scoured the remains of the colony, Captain Reyes' heart sank. There were no survivors. Not a single living soul to be found. The only trace left behind was the video footage sent by the small robot, Spark, moments before it powered down. The image of Ellie Chen's final stand flickered on the screen, and as the video played in the command room, Captain Reyes' hands clenched into fists. The once unshakable resolve within her now burned hotter, fueled by rage and determination. "Send this video to Earth. Let the world see what they've done," Reyes commanded, her voice thick with emotion. The raw pain in her words was unmistakable, but so was the unwavering resolve to make sure the world knew the sacrifice made by a young girl, an entire colony, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The transmission carried the video across the stars, reaching Earth with staggering speed. It arrived like a shockwave, spreading from screen to screen, catching the attention of every corner of human civilization. People from all walks of life, across continents and oceans, watched in horror and grief as the video of Ellie's final moments unfolded. The small girl, defiant against a Vexar warrior, stood tall with courage despite the overwhelming odds. Her sacrifice became a symbol of humanity's will to survive, to protect, to fight, and to never give up. Among the many who watched, one man stood apart. Admiral William Chen, a seasoned military leader, saw his own granddaughter in the footage. His eyes, usually steely with discipline, softened for the first time in 30 years. As the video of Ellie's bravery reached him, his face twisted with grief, and for the first time in a long time, tears filled his eyes. "They will pay for this," Admiral Chen whispered through clenched teeth, the weight of decades of military experience mixing with the pain of a grandfather's love. He wasn't speaking just of vengeance. He was speaking of justice, of the responsibility he had to ensure that no more innocent lives would be lost. As the world united, a surge of fury and resolve began to take shape. Humanity, driven by the memories of their fallen, was no longer a scattered group of isolated colonies. They were one. One force, one will, bound by the same burning desire to protect those they loved. "We aren't asking for permission," Admiral Chen declared, his voice strong and resolute as he prepared Earth's defenses. "We're providing notification. The time for diplomacy was over. The time for action had arrived." The vast darkness of space was about to witness something it had never seen before. The human fleet, though smaller in numbers, was swift and unpredictable. Their ships, sleek and agile, weaved through the cosmos, dodging and striking with an almost unnatural precision. They weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting for survival, for each other, and for the innocent lives lost. The Vexar fleet, massive and imposing, had long been the apex predators of the galaxy. But as they came face to face with the human forces, they were unprepared for what awaited them. Tactics unlike anything the Vexar had ever encountered emerged: deception, misdirection, and ruthless efficiency. While the Vexar relied on their overwhelming force, the humans relied on their wit and cunning. They used their knowledge of terrain, their ability to think on their feet, and their unique form of warfare, fighting like they had nothing to lose, because in many ways, they didn't. The Vexar High Command, still in disbelief, watched from their command ships as their once unbeaten warriors were systematically taken down. They had never faced an enemy that didn't fight by their rules, that didn't play by the traditional script. The Vexar were used to honor, to direct conflict, but humans? They bent the rules, broke them, and used every dirty trick they could. The battle, though fierce, was only one part of the equation. The human forces were not just winning, they were changing the very nature of warfare. They disrupted the Vexar's command structure, causing confusion and chaos among their ranks. In a matter of days, the Vexar had lost nearly a third of their fleet. Finally, realizing the depths of the human resolve, the Vexar High Command sent out an unexpected message: they were willing to negotiate. "We don't destroy species for revenge," Admiral Chen said calmly, as he prepared to meet with the Vexar leader. "But we do protect our children." The peace talks were not a sign of weakness, they were a testament to humanity's strength. The Vexar, once the predators of the galaxy, now found themselves forced to reckon with the survival instincts of a species they had dismissed for so long. And so, the war ended not in total destruction, but in cooperation. The Vexar Collective, now fractured and humbled, signed a peace treaty, promising to end the war and ensuring that no more human lives would be lost. The galaxy, once on the brink of chaos, now had a fragile hope, a hope born of the bravery of a single child and the resilience of a united people. On Nova Haven, a memorial to Ellie Chen stood proudly in the colony's main plaza. It wasn't just a tribute to her bravery, it was a reminder to the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their power. It was in their unyielding determination to protect the ones they loved. Beside the memorial, a new school had opened, and among its first students were children from across the galaxy, including Vexar children, who were now learning not just about peace, but about the unbreakable bonds that could hold the galaxy together, regardless of species. Ellie's legacy was now one of hope, hope for the future, hope for the children of tomorrow. And somewhere, in the vastness of space, Ellie's spirit lingered, smiling at the thought that her sacrifice had not been in vain. Thank you for joining us in this thrilling journey. If you've enjoyed this episode of HFY Sci-Fi Love and War Story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We've got many more captivating stories waiting for you where the line between hero and villain is blurred, and the fate of entire galaxies rests in the hands of the most unlikely beings. Until next time, keep exploring the unknown, and remember, survival is the greatest battle of all.